Have you ever heard the phrase iron sharpens iron?
Yep, yes.
What does that mean?
Like-minded individuals that help each other.
That's right. If you actually take the element of iron, what does it mean when iron sharpens iron? It means that the only way for iron to sharpen itself is with another piece of iron, right? So if you want to sharpen an axe, how do you do that? You got to sharpen it with iron, right? But what happens to an axe? You don't use an axe to chop iron, do you? You use it to chop wood. What happens to the axe when you chop wood? It dulls it. How many people in your life are wood? Okay? Because what happens is if that iron only spends all of its time with wood, all that's left is damaged wood and a dull piece of iron. So it's very important that you audit the people that are in your life, guys. People don't like it when I say, like, look, some of my best friends in the world I grew up with, and I see them maybe once or twice a year. It's because they're going to different places. It's not because I don't love them or like them. They're going to different places. You came here to be around people that are going to a place similar to yourself, right? To grow. So again, I can't stress that enough. When you leave here, who are you going to be with? Who are you going to spend all your time with? How are you going to stay dialed into this community right here that you're getting fed from all day, every day, right? No matter what, the one thing I know is there's some really cool people up there. There's a few $1 billion worth of success just on that little graphic right there. And like what I can tell you about every single one of them is none of them's undefeated. None of them's undefeated. Win or you learn, right? You only lose if you don't learn from it. And one of the things that Brad challenged me with a while back, he said, man, you're a product of your choices. Wherever you're at in life right now, all the choices and decisions you made up to that point led you to where you're at today. So at the end of the day, if you're not happy with your life, whose fault is it? If you're blaming somebody else, you're taking away your ability to solve whatever problems you got. Because you're blaming somebody else, you're giving them control. Are you guys okay with that? Do you agree with that?
100%.
What do you think about that? In 2015, the company that we represented ran some, they run numbers all the time, and they were looking for what they called leaders. They don't have managers, they call leaders, because leaders lead from the front. Managers don't. And I love that. And they were looking for leaders to launch new agencies. That's how you scale. That's how you grow. And we were some of the people that got picked to do that. And from 2016 until the end of last year, when we finished doing that, we had launched close to 200 health insurance agencies and had done about $150 million in revenue during that time span. That's a lot. It's a lot. And the amount of learning, like the bigger we got, the more problems that came. There was a poet. We read about him in elementary school, Wordsmith, a famous one. He said, "Mo money, mo problems." Who was that? Biggie, that's right. Dude, like what the problems that you're having today, folks, you're going to solve them, but like new ones are coming, man. They never stop. Okay? They never stop. Like my son was awesome. Unbelievable kid at 10. We could trust everything he said and everything. And then he kept growing and changing, and other people came in his life. And if you have kids and they're always getting in trouble because of another kid, what do you tell your kid to do? Stop hanging out with that person, right? But then we don't do that to ourselves. We do not we don't practice the same things that we instill in our children, right? So this is kind of where I wanted to bring this little segment to a close. Like, look, I told you guys, I like to feed off of you. Like, I like interviewing people. I like being asked questions. So I hope you guys bring a bunch, but I'm gonna kind of close this part out with this. And that is like, no matter what you do after failure is what defines you. Period. What you do after failure is what defines you. I fail every day. Right? That means I'm trying new things. That means I'm growing. What makes something worth it is what you had to go through to get it. So the things that are most special to you were probably the hardest things for you to get or achieve or whatever. Like, that's what makes them worth it, is the difficulties you have to overcome to have them. If they were easy, we'd take them all for granted, wouldn't we? So we were always big dreamers, and there was things that we wanted to do. Like, remember, I got into insurance to get me to the next place. Okay? So in 2020 is when we started our exit strategy. It was a 2-year exit. 2 years. That's how far ahead in advance we had to plan. Because, remember, that's not about us, right? There were 200, give or take, souls involved in our operation. And we had to leave them better than we found them. Okay? So, and with that 2 years, that was our deadline. We didn't know if it was going to happen that way. But again, starting with the end in mind, like your GPS does, that was the goal. And then we worked our way up to do that. Because, and some of the things that incentivized that were the other opportunities that we had. Because those opportunities wouldn't be there if we didn't make our first deadline. You know what I mean? So I tell everybody in my life today, I've been saying it a lot, like, we don't have marketing problems, we don't have sales problems, we don't have revenue problems, we have thinking problems, right? We're not thinking of the right solutions, and we're not doing it fast enough. Speed is incredibly important to success, all right? All those people up there, they move fast. If you can't keep up with them, you don't get to play, right? Period. So that's a part of the job, is like, look, a lot of those folks up there are people that I look up to. There's, Tim Corbin, that dude, like, man, if you ever get a chance to hear him speak, go. It was like, I didn't want him to leave the studio. I would have kept him there. We'd still be there talking if we could. And it's all about, everything he does is impeccable. Discipline, habits. It's incredible. Everything's earned. If you're not keeping up with what Deion Sanders is doing in college football right now, literally, like, they don't even give jersey numbers out until it's earned. Guess what? Tim Corbin don't either. Vanderbilt University baseball, regarded as one of the top 2 programs in the United States last 10 years. These are like, guys, these are the best of the best recruits coming in, right? And guys that are returning, they practice for 6 weeks without Vanderbilt anywhere else. It's plain black shirt, shorts, hat, because they hadn't earned it. They dress in a tent next to the field. They didn't even go in their $1 million locker room because they didn't earn it. The best of the best. That's how they get treated. Why would you want any different? Why do you want it to be easy? Would they appreciate their locker room as much if they got it day one? That's exactly right. And like, look, they spend a lot of time in the classroom too. When I do that with my young kids, the parents think we're stupid. Why are you taking them to the classroom? They play baseball. It's because that's where you learn, right? You learn in 2 ways, through like a lecture like this and through experience. You got to have both, right? So they go in the classroom, and when they go in the classroom, if you saw their classroom, every table is lined up on the ceiling grids up top in perfect synchronization. Every notebook and pen and all the things on the table are exactly the same on every table. And nobody touches those things or even opens the notebook up until Coach Corbin walks in the room, stands at the podium, and opens his, and then you watch all of them open theirs at the same time. What it takes to win. They rehearse the national anthem over and over and over again. Go to a Vanderbilt game and watch them stand on the chalk line for the national anthem. They're unique, identical. That's why they're so good. It's because they play with each other. Right? They're a team. They're a unit. They're on a mission together. Make sense? They change a lot. My most effective habits. The one thing that I do is I study a lot. I spend a lot of time learning. I spend a lot of time paying attention to people that I look up to, what they're doing, but more importantly, why they're doing it and how I can do it too. It was the first time I ever met Brad Lee. Who knows who Brad Lee is? He's a freaking awesome dude, man. One of the coolest guys, nicest guys. And the first time I ever met him, he said, we were talking about digital marketing. And at the time, I was using static photos only. And we were doing really well with it. In the world of insurance, people don't market very well, right? So the static photos were just killing it. You thought we were like God's gift to marketing. And he looked at it. He was like, where's the video? And I'm like, we hadn't needed it yet. He was like, well, how do you know? Where would you be if you were using video, Nick? And I was like, that's a great question. He was like, you want to find out? All right, cool. So the next day, I started making phone calls, and I found me a camera guy. And I said, hey, come teach me how to shoot stuff, and then I'm going to send it to you, and you're going to edit it and help me put it online. And he was like, cool, found my guy. And then Brad saw it, and Brad was like, hey man, that was actually like the fastest I've ever given anybody advice that I've seen them take it and do something good with it. And he put me on his podcast. And that was the next inflection point for us for the good, is because I went from like 3,000 or 4,000 followers on Instagram to like 30 almost overnight. All because I took somebody's advice, did it the best that I could and impressed him, and he gave me a spot and he gave me a shot, right? And I guess we did. I took my wife with me on the podcast just to make sure we did good, right? And it did great, and we still use clips from that footage today. But man, did life change after we started doing video. Like drastically. And then, and I was doing video, and we weren't using subtitles. And then we realized that most people are in a private spot in the restroom when they're doing a lot of their scrolling, and they've got it on mute. So they're watching videos without volume, so you got to have good subtitles and stuff. And then we started learning about all this stuff, and then that led to the podcast studio and the full-blown creative team and what's now known as HidLab Creative Studios, right? So, and Matthew is a part of that, and he's doing a lot of digital content and videos and learning about those things. What I can tell you, everybody says, what's the sharpest tool you got, Nick? It's my podcast, right? Any of those people that are up there, if I called them right now and I didn't have a podcast, why would they come hang out with me? It's the most powerful networking tool I can find, right? And it also establishes me as an authoritative figure or an expert in whatever it is we're talking about that day, because I'm hanging out with somebody that's great at it, right? And now their audience, which is huge, I'm tied to their audience for a whole episode that lives forever on the internet, right? So it's been an amazing thing. If you don't believe in digital marketing, guys, like the average person, studies say, spends 5-6 hours a day minimum looking at this thing. Are you on it when they look there? And if not, your customers are going to be buying from somebody that's on there, right? We learned that real quick, and that is fact. That is fact. People start to actually like believe the people that they see on here. There's some fools out there, right? You've seen them. Maybe I'm one of them, right? Maybe you are too, but it don't matter if people believe you, right? What else? Good questions. Yes. Advice you have for being a good husband and father? Well, that's a really good question. And as a father, I feel like the greatest thing that I can do is teach my kids to get up. Just keep getting up when they get knocked down. As a parent, you don't want them to fall. I could go back to the condo that we lived in when my son first started walking, and he fell and he skinned his knee. I could show you the exact spot on the sidewalk that it happened, and it broke my heart, especially because it happened when my wife was out of town. Okay. But what I learned is it's not my job to keep him from falling. It's to make sure he gets up and walks again. So the first time he fell off his bike, it was nasty. It was bloody. It was rough. And quite frankly, like my heart hurt so bad. And like I made my kid get up. We didn't even wipe him off. Blood was dripping down his leg and everything on the street. Get on the bike and pedal and ride. Because I didn't want him to be scared to get back on the bike. We'll clean him up afterwards. So as a parent, the greatest thing you can do is like, life's hard, man, for everybody. Okay? NES or the electric company, they don't care what's going on in your life when the bills due. You don't get to call up and give them a doctor's note. Life's fair, everybody's price is just different. That's the greatest thing you can teach your kids, right? Is once you know what it is that you want, I think that's what makes America the greatest country on earth, is because if you want something bad enough and you're willing to do whatever it takes to get it, I think you can have it. Right? So that's what I want to teach my kids. As a husband, man, like my wife does more for me than I can ever do for her. And she's my teammate. So my wife and I have worked together. That's what I met her in the workspace. Matthew will tell you, in our office by design, her desk is right next to mine. Like, that didn't work for my parents. They tried that too, and it was bad. It works for us. And we learned what she was great at and what I was great at, and how to become good teammates. But the biggest thing is we dream together, and we're going in the same direction. Right? You're here for a reason. So if you have a wife, I hope that she's on board with it and is supporting of that, and maybe wants to do something like that for herself, so that you guys can go in the same direction. Because people do grow apart. Most common reason that I think is because they're not going to the same place together. Because if they are, how can they grow apart? Right? So in 2013, my wife and I were separated. We weren't married yet. And what brought us back together for both of us was the thought of, I couldn't stand the thought of another man raising my son. I brought him here. That's my responsibility. And she felt the same way. That was our common ground. And then we ended up learning how to find each other again, right? And literally, like, she's my best friend. You know what I'm saying? She's amazing. The guys that know me will tell you she's everywhere with me. You know what I'm saying? If she wasn't at my kid's Easter party at school today, she would have been here today. You know what I'm saying? So it's okay, men, to need her. Because you do. I promise. How's it working for you so far? You know what I'm saying? So what I do know is that all of you are here because you want different, you want more. And if you had it, you wouldn't be here. That's what I know. So when I was interviewing people that wanted a job, the one thing I already knew is they weren't happy doing what they were doing. So if they tried to get me to give them what they had somewhere else, my question was why? It's not good enough. Why are you comparing it? It's apples and oranges. You want different. So let's figure out what different looks like, and let's work together to get you there. Matthew, let me ask Matthew a question. So Matthew is a prime example of surrounding yourself with like-minded people. My mom would have, when I took my first insurance job, I remember I had nothing, guys. I had to borrow money, right? My mom was telling me, like, there's a management job open at Walmart.
Actually, also, my brother told me to get a job at Walmart.
Dude, they paid like $28 grand a year and it had some benefits. And my mom was like, do that and support your family. I'm like, that won't support my family. Right? And now she's my biggest fan. But remember, my mom's job is to protect me, to keep me from falling down. Right? And when you go home, if you try something new and you go home and the people are going to ask you, what'd you learn? Like, are you going to do it? What's involved? They probably ask Matthew, well, tell me about selling insurance. Right? Well, he'd only been to 2 interviews. Like, studies say you're only going to retain like maybe half of what you hear today. So he went home and they asked questions and he didn't know half the answers. So they're like, oh man, I don't think you should do that. They were protecting him because he didn't have the answers. Right? How many people in your life are that way? When you go home, are those voices going to be what control you? Those voices are probably the ones that got you here today.